The hotel receipt fell out of Sam's purse like a confession written in black ink on white paper. The Riverside Motel, room 247, $89.99. I'd never been to the Riverside Motel in my life. She always said I was paranoid. I prefer the term well-informed. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name's Nick Marrow, and I fix things for a living. Cars, mostly. Been running Marrow's auto shop here in Millbrook for 12 years, ever since I married Samantha. This Rust Belt town knows everyone's business, which makes hiding secrets about as easy as hiding a fire in a paper bag. Sam's been my wife for 8 years, and lately, she's been working late more nights than a vampire. Her excuse? Big projects at Morrison Associates. She's an HR executive there, all sharp suits and sharper tongue when she wants something. I was under the hood of a '98 Chevy when my buddy Carlos walked into the garage, shaking his head like he'd seen something he wished he hadn't. "Nick, we need to talk," Carlos said, wiping grease off his hands. He used to be a cop before he started running security at Pinstripe, the local bar where everyone goes to forget their problems. "What's eating you?" I asked, not looking up from the engine. "I saw Sam yesterday, with Curtis. Curtis Martinez runs the bar at Pinstripe. Good-looking guy, smooth talker, the kind women notice and men want to punch." "So? She goes there sometimes." "Not at the bar, Nick. At the Riverside Motel, in broad daylight." The wrench slipped from my hand and clattered to the concrete floor. The sound echoed in the garage like a gunshot. That evening, Mrs. DeWitt knocked on my door. She's 73, lives next door, and sees everything that happens on Maple Street through her kitchen window. "Nicholas, dear," she said, holding a plate of cookies like a peace offering. "I hope you don't mind me saying, but Samantha's car wasn't in the driveway last night. I was up with my arthritis, you see, and I noticed these things." "Thanks, Mrs. DeWitt. I'm sure she just worked late." "Of course, dear. But if you ever need anything..." She patted my arm like she was consoling a widow. When Sam came home that night, she was humming. Actually humming, like she'd won the lottery. "Good day at work?" I asked. "The best," she said, not even looking at me. "Oh, by the way, I'm planning something special for your birthday next week. A dinner party in the park. All our friends will be there." "Our friends?" "You know, the usual crowd. It'll be wonderful." The way she said "wonderful" made my skin crawl. It was the same tone she used when she told me about her business trips and late meetings. Chapter 2. The Birthday Surprise. The dinner party was set for Saturday evening at Riverside Park, the same park where Sam and I had our first date 9 years ago. She'd reserved the pavilion, ordered catering, even bought new decorations. For a woman who usually forgot to buy milk, she was surprisingly organized about this party. I invited my sister Lexi and Carlos for backup. Something about this whole thing felt like walking into a trap. "You're being paranoid again," Sam said when she saw me texting them. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm finally paying attention." Saturday arrived with the kind of crisp October air that makes everything feel sharp and clear. The pavilion was decorated with balloons and streamers, and a long table was set for 12 people. Sam had invited quite a crowd. Curtis from Pinstripe, Brad Hoffman the accountant, Mike Torres from the gym, her friend Gina Walsh, her boss Eli Richardson, and several others I barely knew. Everyone arrived right on time, like they'd been coached. Sam was wearing a red dress I'd never seen before, and she kept checking her phone every few minutes. "Happy birthday, Nick!" everyone chorused when I sat down. The enthusiasm felt forced, like a high school play where nobody really wanted to be there. We were halfway through dinner when Sam stood up, tapping her wine glass with a fork. "I have an announcement," she said, her voice carrying across the pavilion. "I think it's time for some honesty." The table went quiet. Even the kids playing on the nearby swings seemed to stop and listen. I'm sleeping with someone who can actually satisfy me, Sam announced, loud enough for half the park to hear. Someone who knows how to treat a woman right. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel every eye in the pavilion staring at me, waiting for me to crumble. Instead, I stood up, took a long sip of my beer, and smiled. So is everyone else, I said calmly. In fact, let's see who's on tonight's guest list. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder Lexi had helped me create. Screenshots, photos, text messages, hotel receipts. Curtis, I said, looking at the bartender. Room 247 at the Riverside Motel last Tuesday. You paid with your credit card. Genius. Curtis went pale and started to stand, but I wasn't finished. Brad, you've been using your company's expense account for your little rendezvous. Room service for 2 at the Hampton Inn, charged to client entertainment. Your wife Jennifer might find that interesting. Brad's face turned red. Now wait just a minute. Mike, those protein shakes aren't the only thing you've been sharing with my wife. Nice tattoo, by the way. The one on your lower back. Sam showed me the pictures. Mike shot up from his chair. This is insane. Gina, I continued, turning to Sam's best friend. I always wondered why you were so interested in our marriage problems. Turns out you were creating them. Every Thursday at your apartment while your husband's at work. Gina started crying, which was all the confirmation anyone needed. And Eli, I said, looking at Sam's boss. Using company resources to book hotels for affairs? That's not just adultery, that's embezzlement. The pavilion erupted. People were shouting, crying, demanding explanations. Several guests were filming with their phones. Sam stood frozen in the middle of it all, her perfect red dress suddenly looking like a target. You bastard, she hissed at me. You had no right. I had every right, I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. I'm your husband, or was anyway. I walked away from the table, leaving behind the wreckage of what used to be my marriage and Sam's reputation. Carlos and Lexi followed me to the parking lot. Jesus, Nick, Lexi said. That was brutal. That was just the opening act. Chapter 3. The reckoning Monday morning, I arrived at my garage to find the locks changed and a notice from the bank taped to the door. Sam had frozen our joint business account, effectively locking me out of my own shop. Two can play that game, I muttered, calling my lawyer. By Tuesday, I'd transferred all our personal assets into an account Sam didn't know about, using power of attorney documents we'd signed years ago. Turns out, being married to someone who travels for work has its advantages when it comes to legal paperwork. Wednesday night, I got a call from Curtis. Nick, we need to talk. Do we? Meet me behind Pinstripe, please. I found him in the alley, pacing like a caged animal. Look, I'm sorry about Sam, he started. It just happened, you know? She came on to me. Save it, I said. I don't care about your excuses. What do you want? Money? I can pay you. I want you to tell everyone in this town exactly what you did. I can't do that. It would ruin me. Should have thought of that before you ruined my marriage. Curtis tried to walk away, but I grabbed his arm. You're going to confess, Curtis, tonight, in front of everyone at Pinstripe, or I'm going to make sure every married woman in this town knows exactly what kind of man you are. You wouldn't. I pulled out my phone and showed him the video I'd recorded of our conversation. Try me. An hour later, Curtis stood in front of a packed bar and admitted to his affair with Sam. The reaction was immediate and brutal. 3 women slapped him, 2 men threatened to kill him, and his boss fired him on the spot. I watched from the back of the room, drinking a beer and enjoying the show. Thursday morning brought a visit from Mike Torres. He showed up at my garage, all muscles and attitude. You think you're real smart, don't you? He said, flexing like he was posing for a magazine. Smarter than you, apparently. I could break you in half. You could try. But then you'd go to jail, lose your trainer certification, and still be known as the guy who couldn't satisfy a woman without stealing her from her husband. Mike's face turned red. You don't know anything about satisfying women. I know enough to keep my clothes on when someone else's wife is around. He took a swing at me, but I'd been expecting it. I ducked, grabbed a wrench, and held it up like a warning. Walk away, Mike. You've already lost enough. He hesitated for a moment, then stormed out, shouting threats over his shoulder. Friday brought the final confrontation. Sam showed up at my garage with Eli Richardson and Brad Hoffman looking like a corporate hit squad. We need to settle this, Sam said, her voice cold as winter. Nothing to settle. I filed for divorce on Monday. You can't just destroy people's lives like this, Eli said. Watch me. We could have you arrested, Brad added. What you did was harassment. What you did was adultery and embezzlement. Pick your battle. Sam stepped forward, trying one last manipulation. Nick, we can work this out. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. The only mistake I made was trusting you. I'll give you half of everything. I already took everything. It was mine to begin with. Her mask finally slipped, revealing the cold, calculating woman underneath. You think you've won? I'll destroy you. I'll make sure you never work in this town again. Good luck with that. Hard to destroy someone when your own reputation is already in the gutter. They left without another word, but I knew this wasn't over. Saturday night, I got the call I'd been waiting for. Nick? It was Amber, one of Sam's co-workers. They're at the Riverside Motel, room 247, all of them. They're planning something. I grabbed Carlos and Lexi and we drove to the motel. The parking lot was full of familiar cars, Sam's BMW, Brad's Mercedes, Eli's Lexus. We climbed the stairs to the second floor and found room 247. The door was slightly open, and we could hear voices inside. Transfer the money tonight, Brad was saying. By Monday, we'll be in Mexico. What about Nick? Sam asked. What about him? By the time he figures out what happened, we'll be gone. And the others? Collateral damage, Eli said. They knew the risks. I looked at Carlos and Lexi. Ready? They nodded. I kicked the door open. Chapter 4. The Final Act. The scene inside room 247 was like something out of a bad movie. Sam, Brad, and Eli were hunched over a laptop, surrounded by stacks of cash and legal documents. They looked up like deer caught in headlights. Surprise, I said, walking into the room with Carlos and Lexi behind me. Nick! Sam scrambled to close the laptop. This isn't what it looks like. It looks like conspiracy to commit fraud. You can't prove anything, Eli said, but his voice was shaking. Actually, I can. I held up my phone, which had been recording since we arrived. Lexi's been live streaming this whole thing on Facebook. You're insane, Brad said, reaching for the money. Don't touch it, Carlos warned. That's evidence now. Sam tried a different approach, moving toward me with tears in her eyes. Nick, please. I know I hurt you, but we can fix this. We can start over. The only thing I'm starting over is my life. Without you. You don't understand. I love you. You love my money. There's a difference. I walked to the window and opened it, then started throwing their suitcases out onto the parking lot below. Clothes, documents, and cash scattered across the asphalt. Stop, Eli shouted. That's destruction of property. Sue me. Oh, wait, you can't. You'll be too busy explaining to your wife why you're in a motel room with stolen money. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. Hello, Jennifer? This is Nick Marrow. I'm at the Riverside Motel, room 247, with your husband, Brad. You might want to come down here. Brad lunged for the phone, but Carlos stepped in his way. Sit down, Brad. Next, I called Eli's wife, then his boss at Morrison Associates. Each conversation was brief and devastating. You've destroyed us, Sam said, mascara running down her cheeks. You destroyed yourselves. I just turned on the lights. The sound of sirens filled the air. Someone had called the police. This is it, I said to Sam. Your last chance to tell the truth. All of it. She looked around the room at Brad and Eli, then back at me. What do you want me to say? Everything. The affairs, the money, the plan to disappear. All of it. And if I don't? Then you can explain it to the police, the IRS, and every news station in the state. Sam's shoulders sagged in defeat. There were 5 of them, she whispered. Curtis, Brad, Mike, Gina, and Eli. It started with Curtis 6 months ago. Then the others. I thought I could have it all. The money? Your garage, the house, everything. Brad was going to help me transfer it all to offshore accounts. We were going to disappear. What about the others? They were just fun, distractions. The police knocked on the door. Carlos let them in. Evening, officers, I said. I'd like to report a conspiracy to commit fraud. The next hour was a blur of statements, arrests, and evidence collection. Sam, Brad, and Eli were led away in handcuffs, while I stood in the parking lot watching my old life burn to the ground. You okay? Lexi asked. Better than okay. I'm free. Carlos handed me a beer from the cooler in his truck. So what now? Now I rebuild. New garage, new life, new everything. Any regrets? I thought about it for a moment, watching the police cars drive away with my cheating wife and her accomplices. Just one, I said. I should have done this sooner. The next morning, I reopened my garage with a new sign. Marrow's Auto. We fix what's broken. The whole town came out to show their support. Mrs. DeWitt brought cookies. The mayor shook my hand. Even some of Sam's former friends apologized for believing her lies. By noon, I had more work than I could handle. Curtis left town that same day, too ashamed to show his face. Mike lost his trainer certification and moved back in with his mother. Gina's husband filed for divorce and got custody of their kids. Sam, Brad, and Eli were charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement, and a dozen other crimes. Their trial became the biggest news story Millbrook had seen in years. I didn't attend. I was too busy living my new life. 6 months later, I was working under the hood of a classic Mustang when a shadow fell across the garage floor. I looked up to see a woman I didn't recognize. Tall, blonde, with kind eyes and a genuine smile. Are you Nick Marrow? Depends who's asking. I'm Sarah Mitchell. I just moved here from Chicago. My car's been making a strange noise, and everyone in town said you're the only mechanic worth trusting. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked over to her car. What kind of noise? As I listened to her engine, she told me about her new job at the library, her love of old movies, and her plan to restore the Victorian house she'd bought on Oak Street. You know, she said as I closed the hood, I heard about what happened with your wife. I'm sorry. Don't be. Best thing that ever happened to me. She smiled. I like your attitude. I like your car. 1967 Camaro, original engine. You've got good taste. Thank you. So do you, apparently. We stood there for a moment, the autumn sun streaming through the garage doors, and I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's building something better than what they tried to take away. Coffee sometime? I asked. I'd like that. As Sarah drove away, I looked around my garage, my successful, profitable, honest garage, and smiled. Sam had tried to destroy me, but she'd only made me stronger. She'd wanted to take everything I'd built, but she'd only shown me how much more I was capable of building. The guest list for her birthday surprise had included 5 lovers and a dozen accomplices. The guest list for my new life included everyone who mattered and none who didn't.